upset on the internet. You're a salt adult. You're a salt adult.
Hi everybody, welcome to Retro Station 1989. I'm Commander Dan, and this is the Way Too Late Gaming News. We're going to be talking a little bit about gaming, but this, of course, will be continuing the Bricks and Minifigs saga. This thing that will never end. I got good news. Number one, Reckless Ben will be back on the 30th with his third part of his documentary, and we'll be watching that live on Twitch at Retro Station 1989. Secondly, I began my broadcast this way because I'm getting tired now of these reactions treating what happened to Brian Mansell as non-malfeasance. Oh, it's a mix-up and everyone has blame. This both sides bullshit. And yep, I'm a minute 30 and I'm going to have to coin it. But this both sides hog shit is exactly that. It's hog shit. There's not both sides here. Brian Mansell is not at fault at all, but neither are the Gormans. The Gormans are the folks who owned the Bricks and Minifigs store that Brian Mansell set up his consignment with. Let's start with that. And if you don't know, all right, let's just give you the briefest of overviews because this thing has been going on for a while. Brian Mansell's father got ill. Brian Mansell needed an influx of cash because our system of healthcare is garbage. He consigned a collection of Lego. Lego it's a toy brick system that lets you build whatever you want. But a while back in the early 2000s, Lego as a company licensed the Star Wars branding. If you don't know what a Star Wars is, welcome to the internet. It's day 2 for you, I guess. You've never heard of a Star Wars. Also, if that's not the case, welcome to America. Maybe you don't know about Star Wars. I don't know that that's actually possible, but it might be. So, hi. Wookiees are the furry ones. Anyway, Brian sells, or is wanting to sell this entire collection. The collection itself was valuated, and this is an important term of art for collectibles, was valuated at about $200,000 when the store that he was going to consign them with, another term of art, meaning sell them when you can, pay me when it happens, so I have money now. So I can get the money as things sell rather than trying to get $200,000 off of a auction, which, by the way, if you've ever used eBay, you can put that as the value, but the bidders decide on how they're going to carve up your father's lifelong collection of Star Wars Legos. So he thought consignment was the better option. Honestly, it sounds like it was. Until, and this is always the way with any kind of business, just be aware that the secondary market are full of pawn shops, gougers, people who will steal your last penny. They'd steal your fillings out your mouth. They thought they'd get money on it, and they're going to lowball you. They're gonna evaluate things at a price and then sell it for less and give you less. His deal was 60%, which is nice. In fact, giving the store a 20% of the profits would have been great. 40% of the profits is fantastic for any retail location. You got to keep the lights on, and you got to make a profit. You have to eat too. I understand. I don't want these stores that do secondary business for collectibles not to eat. I have a very good friend named Aaron. He runs a company. This is not an ad. This is just a testimonial of the person who worked for him. Aaron's a magnificent boss. A little distracted sometimes, but he set up a business that was very unique and niche in the collectibles market. It was for gaming collectibles, tabletop gaming collectibles, role-playing games, board games. If it's from the past and you can game with it, even some video game stuff, Aaron sells it out of what was initially his basement, then a warehouse, then a retail location in the same building, and now in one of the largest warehouse complexes of its kind in the Midwest. So, shout outs to Aaron. And I worked for him. So I have some insight into how these businesses work too. All right. And here's where everyone's getting these things wrong. Collectible markets require something called provenance. Something is valuable when it's valuable because of the story behind it. And there's no bigger story than Star Wars in licensing. That is a license with provenance slather all over it. It shows you what value is, right? George Lucas created something with such value you could just put his logo on the thing and people want it, even if it was garbage. The Star Wars board game from the 70s sucked every level of ass in the From Software version of Dark Ass Souls, the game. It was awful. People still want to buy it. People want to have it in their collection. Some people had it when their kids remember, oh, that game was terrible, but you know what? I loved it. I wish I had it again. My inner child thirsts and desires for it. I'm going to satisfy my inner child. I'm willing to admit that there's a lot of childishness in the collectibles market. But this is America, baby. Spend your money on what you want. If you got some money to spend and you spent it, great. If you're selling it, get the money that you're owed. Great. I happen to have, as you can see behind me, I love video games. I love video games. I've loved video games since I was 8. First video game I ever played was an arcade game called Kangaroo. The game wasn't good, but I was astonished. I was looking at a kangaroo that I could control on the screen. I was like, this is amazing. This technology will never bore me. And it never has, actually. Even when all we had was Pong, I wanted to play Pong. Even when all we had was the Atari 2600, I used my imagination to imagine I was playing the version that was the arcades. Provenance means there's a story behind the thing that you're selling, making it collectible, giving it a term of art called value. For me, the value of video games is playing them. That's why I don't have a lot of sealed box games. Sealed doesn't make a difference to me. Doesn't. I break the seal on video games because you have to if you're going to play them, and they're not worth anything if they're not being used. Part of that very provenance is that it has to be able to be used. And when you slab a game, you never know if the battery works. They can be damaged in those slabs. People don't know because they never worked retail. And this is what this video is about when we talk about Legos and minifigs. We're talking about the thing everyone's talking about. Like, oh, the set it wasn't really worth $200,000. Yes, it was, because they did an on-site valuation. And at the time, like Antiques Roadshow, she walked in. This would be Crystal Gorman walked in to Brian's house, looked at the collection, and just did a spot valuation, an estimate of what it was worth. Let me show you something here. I have this cartridge, Super Nintendo cartridge. I'm going to show you the label. What do you think this game is worth? No cheating in the back. Don't shout out, oh my God, you have that game. Right? It's not a repro. It's an actual copy of the game. Well, let's talk about what it's worth, because luckily there's a website that helps. Let's take a look. All right. Price charting. I do advise anyone who's looking for valuation on their video games to look at pricecharting.com. You can see that the value of this game goes up and down and up and down. Currently, if you look over here, the loose price for this, each day, these are sold prices loose, $400 almost. That's without shipping, right? I also have the book. So let's take a look here. I have the strategy guide with the scratch and sniff, but not the poster. Okay. And I think that goes for between $200 and right around $500. Would you care to see them just in case? Oh, he could be lying. I'm not lying. There we go. And these were my wife's childhood copies. We're never getting rid of them. I'm never selling them. Knowing the value of them only lets me know, hey, cool. We have this in our collection. It's nice to say that we do. And she really loves the game. The game has dropped down in price, as a matter of fact. But it's gone back up because people want the real thing. I personally love Star Wars. Let's take a look at that. I have this Star Wars for the NES. It's a complete in-box copy. And it's valued at $72.31, complete in box. I would imagine this one's probably worth 50, maybe 40. Because I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable charging it the full complete in box price. It's dinged up, it's foxed on all the edges. It's got a lot of wear and tear for a game that is honestly almost 50 years old. Maybe. What am I talking about here? Is 91, I think this came out. So 91 to 2000. Yeah, so 30 years old. It's pretty good for 30 years old. But I also have Empire Strikes Back, which is worth about $90. And this is what a valuation is, okay? I know that together here I've got about $100. If I sold these on consignment, I would expect to get, if this was 60%, I would get $60 for these two games. Right around there. Unless somebody wanted to come in and haggle and they paid less, I would get the 60% of that. I'm just going with what I would hope to get, which is the $60. So here's the point. The very simple point is it was worth 200 grand. So it's 200 grand of Legos, initially speaking. It was listed as that by the Bricks and Minifigs Corporation, one of their franchisees. And I know at the time it was the Gormans who owned the store, but Bricks and Minifigs leapt on the idea of the promotion, which is a very similar situation happened in video games. If anybody doesn't remember Wada Games, look it up on YouTube. Check out Pat the NES Punk's video on it, and more importantly, Carl Jobst, or Jobst. I think it's Jobst. I want to say Jobst. Check out Carl's video on Wada Games, and this is illegal because heritage auctions ruined coins, ruined comics, hell, probably stamps as well. They tried to do it to video games, and they tried to do it with VHS tapes. Red Letter Media has a great video on Provenance and how VHS tapes aren't worth a damn, and anyone who tries to sell you on the nostalgia trip that, oh, Back to the Future sold for 78 grand, that's a scam. Somebody got scammed. And the scam is them telling you what the valuation portion is the scam with heritage auctions and Wada Games and all of their other miscellaneous so-called businesses. How does this relate to the Lego situation, though, is that Coffeezilla came at this with the eye of an inspector, an investigator. He investigated the whole thing. And I love the fact that he came up with proof that there was a U-Haul there. And he picked up on the fact that Brian, what's his name? Josh Johnson, and came in the store with a U-Haul. That very night, he shows up in Salem, Oregon, with a truck full of Star Wars Legos. On pallets, I would imagine, because they were saran wrapped. That suggests pallets for me, who's worked in retail. So he pulled a pallet off the truck. That's all. I imagine it was everything in the store. Bricks and Minifigs has the testicular fortitude to say they had $5 grand worth of Star Wars stuff, 2 to 3 things from layaway that's owed to Brian Mansell. They lowballed it. They saw a chance to steal and they stole, allegedly. This is alleged. I don't know for sure. What it sounds like to me, what it appears to be, to me, they saw a chance to steal and they stole. And what's more than that, they saw a chance to steal, they stole, and they've done it before. That's what I think is coming out in this next documentary that Ben puts up. They've done this before to people. They've done this before on not a similar level. And the foolish thing they did here was they made the amount that they had publicly known as part of the advertising of it all. And that's why they got caught. And that's why they're acting like astonished that nobody's buying their bullshit. Like, I'm going to sue you. Hell no, you're not. You're giving me back my Legos, and I'm going to fight. I'm going to bring in outside help to bring attention to this. But, Charlie, you got this wrong. Number one, it wasn't shoddy bookkeeping. It would be shoddy bookkeeping if the Gormans had decided to sell their business back to Bricks and Minifigs. They didn't. Remember, they sent in Josh Johnson to sneakily record their store and record images that looked like they were poorly managing it. And this is the problem I have. This is the thing that made me angry. Because they're in a whimsical business, selling Lego to kids, doing aftermarket collectible sales, it seems like that precludes them from being good business people. You ever gotten behind on your paperwork? I don't know, Charlie. Have you ever had if you've never had a job in the shitty real world, I can loop you in. I've had plenty of those jobs, but here's the deal with retail. Number one, the layaway stuff says sold because it is. Legally, you have to say it was sold because they're going to take a down payment. It's a PTP. It's a promise to pay. They're going to pay for this object. It now belongs to them on the condition they pay for it within the layaway time structure. Layaway also has a payment structure and a payment plan. If it's open-ended, it's open-ended. That's very kind of a store to do that. Not every store does that. It was a concession made for the situation. And this is the thing that that Coffeezilla didn't take into consideration. Charlie, you didn't take this into consideration. Brian Mansell's dad was ill. He needs this money now. So as many things he can do to sell this stuff, he's going to do to get the money now. Which means when you see storage, they probably don't want to say, no, some of the stuff was in storage, probably at an agreed shared location where Brian Mansell had access to it and could make deals on the side with other people so that he could sell the things. What he wanted was to sell them, to get the money. That's his business is not their business. Thinking about this purely in terms of what benefits Bricks and Minifigs or not, that gives you an idea of why they would do the things they do. But ultimately, the goal here was to sell everything. It wasn't to keep anything. It wasn't to get the best price, I don't even think. It seems like he was willing to put up with any deal that came along. So they were keeping books along the way. We would have to look at the dates. The fact that we don't see the dates says two things. Either Coffeezilla doesn't think that information was important to make a good story, and it's not. But if we're going to comment on this, you have to think about these things in the way that it's important. I'm thinking about it. My dad was a cop, so he taught me to think like a person who's ready to be screwed over when people seem shady and twisty. Everybody at Bricks and Minifigs, this is my opinion of them. They seem shady as hell, and they seem willing to lie to their own mothers to make a buck. And they're condescending as hell to people who they believe are below them. And trust me, I would advise everyone, I'll even put a link to it again in this video. Go check out the All in Favor podcast where they talk about the situation. It's the LDS Church's podcast about being Mormon, I guess. It's not really a hobby podcast. Let me get my chair. It's not really a hobby podcast, but they talk about this and they joke about how, everyone thinks there's a Mormon mafia, that there's this kind of conspiracy. Yeah, motherfucker, because there is, okay? All right? There is a conspiracy. You're part of it. And they talk about how bribery wouldn't be on the menu for Bricks and Minifigs because it would be millions, while they've got the Marriott family who gives them trillions. So we're agreed, you scums will take money, bribes. It just has to be the right price. So while we're haggling about his price now, that means you have no fucking morals, okay? You're zero moral people, and that's fine. Allegedly, well, I don't know. They kind of say that they will take a bribe from the Marriott family. I guess it's good enough for the Marriotts to give them trillions of dollars instead of millions. You know what? My point being is that they look out for one another. It's now been said on podcasts. If it's still out there, I would have erased it. It doesn't do your position any good. It doesn't give anyone any great feelings about who you are or what you do. But here's the point. I think people are taking the Gormans less serious because they worked in a less serious business as far as the subject matter of their business, but they were retailers. Why were these things marked sold in layaway is what Coffeezilla asks. Inventory control. Shrink is the number one thing that kills retail businesses and is the number one problem in most retail businesses. 90% of shrink happens because of bad bookkeeping. These people weren't keeping bad books. They had everything listed. What was on layaway, what wasn't. Now that section of material that had been sold on the side, I guarantee you it was because Brian came in and said, hey, I need these things. I'm going to sell them to this collector. He wants them now. He doesn't want to lay away them like we've done with the majority of these things in the store. Because Brian's thinking, bricks of minifigs, they're huge, and they're going to be here for all time. I'm looking at looking back on the old days. I'm looking at a Kmart. I'm looking at a Walmart. I'm looking at a Sears and Roebuck. This is a solid business that will be in this location for the rest of my life, if not the rest of my dad's life. Meaning I'm okay with consigning and waiting because it seems like they do brisk business. Not to mention, they're willing to let me sell my collection that I've given them to handle piecemeal out to other collectors. This is not the thing you think it is, Charlie. This is not the thing you think it is, Coffeezilla. The thing you haven't thought about, and the thing you guys got to really lock into, this is the lock-in portion, is that Josh Johnson came to that store that night, pushed them out. The guy Kai says, yeah, we know it's bricks and minifigs deal with the consignment stuff. We'll handle it. The reason why they got them out of the store so quick was to steal, in my opinion. This is alleged, but here's how I'm going to frame it. The U-Haul was there to steal whatever they could get their hands on that was there and available. Why would they take pictures of empty shelves? To prove there was nothing there? Why? So that when somebody asks where did it all go, no, there's nothing there. Yet there are pictures of everything being there in a safe. When presented to the McNeffs, Matt McNeff, his fucking bowl-headed idiocy goes, that looks like a bookshelf to me, but yeah, there's a 2-inch bolt and a metal door and a hinge on the left-hand side. But yeah, it's a fucking bookshelf. Sure. I guess, yeah, whatever you say. And Coffeezilla lets it go. Like, wait, what? No, clearly, look, hinges. What bookshelf has hinges on it? Coffeezilla lets shit go too quick because of the light nature of the business, I'm sure of it. He doesn't take it serious, because why the fuck would you take somebody who sells clown shoes fucking serious if there was a serious thing happening in the clown shoe business? That's what makes it an interesting story, but that's not what makes it less important to the people involved. So that's my strike against Coffeezilla. And Charlie, you're not thinking clearly here. The guy came, he said in the video, you didn't mention this. No one's mentioning this, and I don't know why. He says, oh, we kicked them out because we're going to have locksmiths there to change the locks. He kicked them out at midnight. You know any fucking tradesmen who come out at midnight to change every lock on a leased building without the fucking landlord there? You ever been a landlord? Do you want to be there in the middle of the goddamn night? This was not, this was an act of opportunity. The theft here, the taking of someone's property, was an act of opportunity. The agreed upon situation was, hey, we'll give this to other owners because we're leaving the country. Oh, great. Oh, wait, you guys are the ones with that massive collection. Immediately the skim ideas begin. How are we going to skim this? Oh, layaway. Oh, yeah, laid away back in our U-Haul and taken all the way out of town. Well, now it's not in the store. We need you to take pictures of empty shelves, and so we have something to base this on. Oh, wasn't she, convicted of a crime when she was 19? Yes, we can use that against her. So don't worry, we're going to be able to steal as much as we can. And when the guy comes calling, we're going to pretend like we don't know him. It's this both sides shit that's really bothering me. Like, oh, well, it also had to be the Gormans who did this. No, it has nothing to do with them. They kept their books correct. They were ambushed, thrown out of their fucking store, and so-called at midnight, the fucking locksmith came, and it wasn't to get keys out of a car, which they'll come for, or try to get you into your house because you locked your keys out. Sure, I've heard of locksmiths doing that. I've not heard a whole building getting their doors changed, which it looked like there was at least the retail entrance, the back entrance to the store, and a side entrance, if the videos that I saw from Reckless Ben are correct. What fucking locksmith shows up without the owner of the building? Now, I've taken a look online. I wanted to see, hey, did they lease this building or do they own it? They don't own the building. The building's owned by the mini mall people. That's why there's other stores there. They didn't build a building, a Bricks and Minifigs building. It's not McDonald's in that. It's not a franchisee like McDonald's, where McDonald's mostly owns land more than restaurants. It's very crazy, I know, but that's the facts. So here's the timeline of events. Josh Johnson shows up with a U-Haul, gets to the store, already has a plan to take whatever's there and put it in the fucking U-Haul and take it to the other store that he owns and sell it there. Out from under both the contract of consignment and the eyes of anyone who would know what belonged to Brian and what didn't, and he's changing the locks. He's not. That's not a true thing that happened. I guarantee you, if the Gormans brought their fucking keys to that building, they could open that building tomorrow. Because the locks weren't changed without the fucking landlord. No way. It's against the law. In every state except for California. And even then, you have to, in a matter of days, give the copies of the keys that go to those locks to the landlord. You have to notify the landlord when you're going to do that. At midnight, randomly on a fucking day, you just happen to be there with a fucking U-Haul. Okay. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a cop, right? Don't let the glasses fool you. But here's the facts. This scumfuck took those, saran wrapped them up in a pallet, brought them to his other store to steal them. To sell them out from under Brian Mansell, believing that he had that contract with Brian became null and void when he took ownership of the store. He was either hoping that or thought that. And because the store apparently was yanked from the bad guys, I can't remember their names, the Gormans, because they were bad. They fled the country and stole. They didn't flee the country. They couldn't. The way they got screwed over by Bricks and Minifigs on their contract to get paid out, they couldn't. Because Bricks and Minifigs pretended like they didn't have shit in their store. It's like these things that are part of the story that may not be important to folks who've never worked retail or have worked retail and just didn't know that part of it. These are important things. It is vitally important to remember that, number one, no locksmith is coming at midnight to change the fucking locks on your whole building. Not going to happen. Not even if it was not without some kind of outlay of serious cash to put a tradesman out there in the middle of the night. Not happening. If I were the landlord, I would say likelihood of a commercial landlord being in the state that you're in when you do this, because they have to be on site when you make the change and be given a set of the keys, is the other part of this. You want to know why I know this probably is what I'm saying is true, is more true than false? Because a month before, this shithead came there to swap keys with them. Why swap keys if you're changing all the fucking locks? So what they were doing is covering time that he spent stealing from that store to take to the other store. That's it. That's where they're at. So Coffeezilla, you got it wrong, in my opinion. I think that's what you're going to find out, is that Bricks and Minifigs does this all the time. This kind of ownership swap shit to pull inventory from one site to another, to pay out less than they ought to. And there are videos out there of people bringing in valuable minifigs into the store, things that are valued at thousands of dollars, and they know it, and they know what they have, but the store tries to fucking lowball them out of their stuff. And they sit there like, yeah, you know, this thing is worth like $1,800. Why are you saying it's worth $20? Because Bricks and Minifigs is a pawn shop. It's a 2-bit dime store hood of a pawn shop. And if you're smart, sell your stuff online to other collectors. Go to conventions. Don't work with these people. They now are suing people that they've done wrong. How that's mighty white of them, if you know what I mean. Anyway, more on this subject later. I'm going to try and get a locksmith from my area, and we're going to talk about what the law is in my area. There happens to be a Bricks Minifigs right nearby. On my most recent Way Too Late news, Brian went in and talked to the folks at Bricks Minifigs. They treated him just like Ammon fucking McPhee or whatever his name is, McNeff, treated Coffeezilla. And let me make sure you understand this. No, it's like waiting for someone to grease up their thumb to stick in your ass. No, thanks, buddy. No, thank you. Last but not least, folks, want to make sure that I talked about that. Talked about the bookcase thing. Okay. Last but not least, guys, License to Play. I'm editing it now. I'm finishing up the edit this morning, and it should be up to this afternoon. Sometime after this goes up, which will be in. Well, today is Tuesday, so this and License to Play will be up, and there will be another License to Play next week. I've got on the train of getting things done. And it's Superhero Summer, so next week's episode is going to be real good. Yeah, but this week's episode is primo. I will say that. So, more than anything else I've said during this broadcast that we'll say in the future or have said in the past, remember to always, always, always stay retro.
Get upset on the internet. You're a salt adult. You're a salt adult. Get upset on the internet. You're a salt adult. Throwing out a hissy fit, your views ain't in the millions, and every up and comer is a threat to what you're dealing in. Instead of getting better.